My sister secretly recorded my family mocking my streamer career, posted it online for everyone to see, so I cut them off, took away their free ride, and my dad showed up at my door in a rage. Before we dive into this intense story, we have a small favor to ask. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. It's always incredible to see how far our stories reach. Thank you so much. Now let's dive in. I'm Ethan, I'm 27, and for the past few years I've been a full-time streamer. It's not something I discuss much with my family, not because I'm embarrassed, but because they wouldn't understand. And honestly, I prefer it that way. Here's the thing though, I make good money. More than enough to live comfortably, invest, and up until recently, support my family financially. Growing up, things were always tight. My dad, let's call him Mason, worked a soul-sucking office job, constantly complaining about how real jobs never pay enough. My mom, Diane, was a stay-at-home wife. And then there was my younger sister, Nina. She's still figuring life out, but what happened a few nights ago, that was the final straw. Ever since I started making real money, my dad's attitude toward me has been weird. He never acknowledges my success, never asks about my work, and certainly never treats me like an independent adult, one who has been paying their bills for years. Instead, he still talks about me like I'm some lazy kid refusing to get a real job. At first, it was just condescending remarks, eye-roll-worthy comments about how playing video games all day must be exhausting, or when are you going to do something productive with your life? But lately, it's gotten worse. Last weekend, I went to my parents' house for family game night. We don't do them often, but my mom insists on quality time, so I usually play along. I figured it'd be a few rounds of Uno, some lighthearted bickering, and maybe even a home-cooked meal if I was lucky. Instead, it turned into a full-blown roast session at my expense. Mason smirked as he shuffled the cards. Must be nice to sleep all day while the rest of us have real jobs. I rolled my eyes. I don't sleep all day, Dad. I work late, Nina snorted. Work? Please. You literally sit in front of a computer and talk to strangers. I sighed. It's called content creation. Maybe read up on it sometime. Diane sighed wistfully, tapping her chin. I just remember when you wanted to be something great, Ethan. A scientist, a doctor. You had such big dreams, Mason chuckled. Yeah, but that was before he realized he could make money playing with cartoon characters on a screen. Nina rolled her eyes. Seriously, what's your plan if this whole internet thing collapses? What are you gonna do? Go outside? I forced a laugh, trying not to let it get under my skin. Yeah, because offices are still hiring people with computer science degrees who haven't used them in 5 years. Mason scoffed. That's the problem with your generation. No real skills, no stability. You think this little hobby is going to last forever? Nina smirked. Dad, don't be ridiculous. Ethan's already lasted longer than we thought. We gave him 2 years, tops. Laughter. I clenched my jaw. This was normal. This was expected. They never took my career seriously, never bothered to ask how much I actually made. It was always just a joke to them. But what I didn't know was that Nina had been secretly recording me. And 2 days later, she posted the video online. I wasn't even looking for it. I was just scrolling through Instagram when I saw a notification. Nina posted a story. I tapped on it without thinking. And there it was, a shaky, low-quality video of my dad, leaning back in his chair, drink in hand, saying, I swear, Ethan has the easiest life on earth, plays his little games, talks to nerds all day, and somehow pays rent. He could be homeless in a year and not even see it coming. Then, laughter. Nina laughing, Diane laughing, even my uncle chuckling in the background. I swiped to the next clip. More of the same. Mason smirking. Ethan thinks he's some kind of businessman. Diane shaking her head. He should actually use his computer science degree and get a real job. Nina holding the camera, whispering between giggles. This is why he never brings a girlfriend home. I kept swiping through the clips, and the worst part? They weren't just mocking me. They were trashing everything I worked for. Mason chuckling. Oh, sure. Let's all take career advice from a guy who spends 90% of his life in pajama pants. Diane nodding. He had so much potential. Nina flipping the camera to herself, giggling. No wonder he's still single. Mason laughing. His audience is probably just a bunch of lonely weirdos. Diane between chuckles. They probably donate out of pity. Nina smirking. Imagine thinking being a streamer is a real career. That's like calling yourself a professional slot machine player. Mason sighing. I give it a year before he comes begging for a loan. Uncle Rob from the background. 6 months. More laughter. I stared at my screen, my hands shaking. I knew they didn't respect my job. I knew they thought I was wasting my life. But seeing it, hearing them say it when they thought I wasn't listening, the success they never acknowledged. I wish I could say I always knew my family would act like this. That deep down, I expected it. But that would be a lie, because in the beginning, I was excited to share my success with them. I still remember the first big paycheck I ever got from streaming. It wasn't anything insane, just over $5,000, but for someone who had been scraping by, barely able to afford gas, it felt like winning the lottery. And the first thing I didn't splurge on myself, I didn't upgrade my PC, I didn't go buy something ridiculous, I spent it on them. I called my mom that same night. "Mom, I want to take you guys on a trip." She sounded confused at first. My parents had never been able to afford vacations when I was growing up. The most we ever got was camping trips near the farm and a weekend at some motel by a lake once when I was 10. But now, I had the money. So I booked a full trip to the coast. Nothing too extravagant, but a comfortable resort stay with an ocean view, good food, and real relaxation. I wanted them to enjoy it, to show them that I was doing something real. At first, they seemed happy. My mom gushed about the fresh seafood. My dad actually cracked a joke about how maybe I wasn't completely useless after all, and Nina spent half the trip snapping pictures like she was an influencer. But then, on the last night of the trip, I overheard Mason talking to my uncle on the phone. "Yeah, Ethan's been throwing money around like he's rich. It's cute, but we both know this won't last. He'll be back asking for help in no time." My stomach dropped. That was the first time I realized that no matter what I did, my dad still saw me as a failure. But I pushed the feeling aside. I told myself it was just his way of joking. So I kept giving. A year later, when my income exploded, I decided to surprise them with something nice. Their old TV was a bulky, outdated piece of junk, barely functioning, flickering half the time, and covered in scratches from years of wear and tear. So I bought them a brand new 65-inch smart TV, top of the line. I even installed it myself, mounting it on the wall while Mason watched from the couch. He didn't help. He didn't thank me. Instead, when I finished, he just sighed and shook his head. "You really shouldn't be wasting your money on stuff like this, Ethan. What happens when this all crashes? Not thank you. Not this is amazing. Not I'm proud of you. Just doubt. Like no matter what I did, I would never be seen as anything more than some kid messing around on a computer. But even then, I still kept giving, because the biggest gift I ever gave them, a brand new van. My dad worked part-time doing farm labor for a neighbor, hauling supplies, moving equipment, stuff that required a reliable vehicle. His old truck, completely falling apart. The brakes were shot. The engine overheated every other week, and I didn't want him getting stranded on the road one day. So what did I do? I bought him a new one, a reliable, sturdy van, nothing too fancy, but exactly what he needed. When I handed him the keys, he just stood there staring at them. Finally, he muttered, "You didn't have to do this." I smiled. "I know." He nodded. "Well, thanks, I guess." That was it. No excitement, no real appreciation, just discomfort, like me doing something nice for him was an inconvenience. But the worst part, he still complained about it. 2 weeks later, my mom let it slip. "Your dad thinks you should have gotten something more practical. He says the van's too much and makes him feel like a charity case." I just sat there in stunned silence. I had busted my ass to make sure he had a safe, functioning vehicle, and he still had something negative to say. And now, after years of helping them, covering their bills, buying them gifts, taking them on vacations, they sat around laughing behind my back, mocking me, dismissing my career, acting like I was nothing, like I was some joke they had to tolerate. And that's when it hit me. They were never going to see me differently. They were never going to respect me, unless I made them. So I opened our family group chat and typed, "Hey, just saw Nina's video. Didn't realize you all thought so little of me." Mom typing. Stops. Nina starts typing. Stops. Finally, Mason responded. "Oh, you saw that. Come on, don't be so sensitive. We were just joking around." I stared at the screen. Joking? Then Nina chimed in. "Yeah, it wasn't serious, LOL. You know how Dad gets after a few drinks?" That familiar heat rose in my chest. I typed back. "Funny, I don't remember it being a joke when you needed money for rent last month." Silence. Then, "Dude, seriously? You're mad over a stupid video?" I clenched my jaw. This wasn't just about the video. This was about the years of being treated like a joke, even while I was the one keeping them afloat. And they still didn't get it. So I sent one last message. "I'll make this simple. If my job is so embarrassing, you won't have to worry about it anymore. Don't ask me for another cent." Then, before they could respond, muted the chat. And for the first time in years, I felt relief. But I knew this wasn't over, not even close. Because Mason, he never handled losing control well. And I had just taken away his favorite safety net. I had a feeling the real fallout was about to begin. The first few hours after I muted the chat were eerily quiet. No messages, no frantic apologies, no desperate attempts to argue. For a brief, stupid moment, I thought, maybe they got the message. Maybe they finally understand. Then around 9 p.m., my phone lit up. Dad calling. I let it ring. A minute later, text from Mason. Pick up the damn phone. Then another. Don't act like a child over a joke. You really think you're going to cut us off over this? Grow up, Ethan. There it was, that familiar tone, the anger, the entitlement, like he was owed this conversation, like I was the one being unreasonable for finally setting a boundary. I ignored him. 2 minutes later, Nina texted, "Dude, you're being so dramatic. Dad's pissed. Just talk to him. It wasn't even that serious." I still didn't respond. Then my mom. "Ethan, honey, please don't do this. You know your father didn't mean any harm." That one stung more than it should have. Not because I believed her, but because of how automatic it was, how predictable. She always did this, minimized his behavior, swept things under the rug, smoothed things over just enough to keep the peace. I could practically hear her voice in my head, that tired, exasperated sigh she always used whenever I dared to push back. "You know how he is, Ethan. Just let it go." But I wasn't letting it go anymore. I was done. So I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, shut my laptop, and went live. It was a good stream. Solid viewer numbers, a few big donations from regulars, a killer game performance, and the whole time in the back of my mind I kept thinking, this is my real life, not them. This. I should have felt free, and in a way I did. But I also knew my dad, and I knew he wouldn't just let this go. So when I finally crashed at 3 a.m., completely exhausted, I already had a bad feeling about the next morning. And sure enough, the first thing I saw when I woke up, missed notifications, 16 missed calls, 8 from Mason, 4 from Diane, 2 from Nina, 2 from an unknown number. And at the very top, bank notification. My stomach dropped. I tapped it open. $600 withdrawal, $150 withdrawal, $350 withdrawal. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, and then it hit me. They took money from me. More specifically, my parents had just drained my joint emergency savings account, the one I set up years ago when they were struggling, back when I was naive enough to think helping them would make them appreciate me. I barely used it now. It was just a safety net, something to fall back on, and they were emptying it. My hands were shaking as I yanked my phone off the charger and immediately called my bank. Yeah, I need to remove someone from my account. Right now. While the customer service rep worked, I pulled up our family group chat, and without bothering to read the dozens of unread messages, I sent one final text. "You just stole from me. I'm done." Then I blocked all of them. No more arguments, no more justifications, no more excuses. I was done. But deep down I knew this wasn't over, because people like Mason, they don't just walk away when you take away their control. And sure enough, 2 hours later, there was a loud, angry knock at my door. Not the casual kind. Not someone dropping by for a visit. This was insistent, demanding. I already knew who it was, but still I checked the peephole. And there he was. Mason, standing on my doorstep, jaw clenched, face red, his fist practically trembling at his sides. He didn't just look angry. He looked furious. And I had a feeling this was about to get a lot worse. I stood there, staring through the peephole, my heart pounding. I wasn't scared, at least not in the way he wanted me to be, but there was something about the way he stood there, his whole body practically vibrating with rage, that made my blood run cold. Then, bang! He slammed his fist against the door. "Ethan, open the damn door!" His voice was sharp, clipped, a tone I had heard my entire life, a tone that always expected to be obeyed. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. I knew if I ignored him, he'd just keep escalating. So I unlocked the door. And the second I cracked it open, he shoved his way inside. I barely had time to step back before he was already in my living room, towering over me. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked, voice low but seething. His hands were clenched into fists, his whole body tense like he was barely holding himself back. "You blocked your mother, your sister. After everything we've done for you?" I let out a sharp laugh. "Everything you've done for me? That's rich!" His face twisted. "You stole from me," I snapped, my voice ice cold. "Don't act surprised that I cut you off." His eyes narrowed. "Stole from you?" he scoffed. "That money was for the family." I stepped closer, refusing to let him loom over me like he used to when I was a kid. "That was my money," I said, "that I earned, that I chose to share with you until I realized you didn't actually need it." His jaw tightened. "So that's it? You're just going to turn your back on us?" I felt something snap. "You turned your back on me." My voice rose, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. "You laughed at me, humiliated me, mocked my career while living off my money. And now that it's gone, now you suddenly care?" He let out a short, bitter laugh. You think you're so damn successful, huh? Think you're better than us? I just stared at him, calm, controlled. No, but I am finally done being used by you. Silence. Then, finally, he took a step back, his breathing heavy, his face dark with rage. You'll regret this, I smiled. No, Dad, you will. Then I opened the door. Now get out. And for the first time in my life, he listened. Would you have cut them off too? Do you think Ethan was too harsh, or was it deserved? Have you ever walked away from toxic family members? Drop your thoughts below.